My name is Nilufar Fowler, and I work in the global office of Mindshare, so based in London. And I have to tell you, it is about 10 degrees and raining in London. So thank you very much for having me in the beautiful, warm, sunny Copenhagen today. Really delighted to be here. So I have really two jobs at Mindshare. One is running the global Unilever account, which takes me all over the world. But my other job, which is kind of a bit of an unpaid job, is to be the agent provocateur for a number of our clients to actually come together with some different pieces of thinking that help our clients really prepare for the future. And that's very much what After Ad has been about for us. So it's a deliberately provocative piece that's designed to get our clients thinking about how might they need to prepare for a world beyond the advertising model that they're used to operating in. And it takes a deliberately inflammatory stance that is around legislation. But the reality is, for many of our clients, both Unilever and other clients, they are increasingly operating in a world where they need to understand how to move beyond an advertising model, because they are facing a number of challenges around legislation. So if you're operating in the alcohol category, if you're operating in the high-fat foods category, the high-sugar foods category, you've got a whole bunch of legislation that's coming down the pipeline very, very rapidly at you that is shrinking what you can and can't say to consumers going forward. You're operating in a world where ad blocking is becoming an increasing challenge for consumers, and you're operating in an environment where consumers are actually able to just choose to consume their content in channels with very little to no advertising at all. So this is very much a hot topic for us at Mindshare, for all of our clients across the globe, and I'm guessing that Denmark is no different, really, from that. So this piece was really designed to provide some of the building blocks that clients need to start thinking about. We're going to show you different pieces of the film that we actually put together. So you've just seen the 2018 piece, which is probably, for our clients, really what they're tending to think about at the moment. And really a lot of the narrative that we have with clients at the moment is about how do you move from a world that is not about delivery anymore, but is about discovery. And it is quite extraordinary when we talk to clients, when we look at both their advertising and their content ecosystem across paid, owned and earned channels, how little attention is paid to discoverability as being part of that narrative. So has everyone seen the film Field of Dreams? Old film where a guy builds a baseball field, and there's a mantra through the whole film that says, if you build it, they will come. And that is very much one of the mantras that a lot of advertisers seem to be operating in, is really still operating from this belief that if you build brilliant content and if you make engaging content, that somehow it is going to be discovered and somehow it is going to be found and it's going to be shared. And the reality is that actually there's a huge ecosystem of work that needs to go behind all of that content, that is about how we make it discoverable in a world that is driven by data signals, and how we then harvest those data signals, continue to optimize and improve the performance of all of that content across all of the channels. We talk at this point in time an awful lot about a paid, owned, earned world. We're all very, very used to that. The conversation that we're increasingly having with our clients is how you move beyond paid, owned, earned to start to classify your content, be it advertising content, being native content, whatever it might be, into a world that is actually about what we call found, used, kept, and shared. So this is thinking about your content in the terms of what are your consumers, what are people actually likely to do with this content when they find it? Are they simply going to find it, consume it once if you're lucky, and move on? That's it. It's disappeared into the ether, which feels like an enormous waste of all the effort that goes into a piece of content. So actually what you need to start thinking about is how do you move consumers actually further through the funnel? So how do you move them on from just finding your content and consuming it to that content actually being usable? And I'll come back to talk about utility later on in this presentation, because it's a big conversation that we're having at the moment with consumers. How do you actually encourage your consumers to keep that content, whether it's simply bookmarking it, whether it's pinning it, to their Pinterest boards, whatever that might be. How do you make that content something that they see as worthwhile for saving and continuously referring back to? And even better, how do you make that content shareable? So how do you make it something that's actually going to travel across ecosystems? We don't talk about virality anymore. We talk about utility and entertainment being the bedrock of actually content being shareable going forwards. The other conversation, though, in the world of 2018, as we imagine it, that we have an awful lot, is actually about moving on from a buying attention model to an earning affection model. And this is something that an awful lot of brands, advertisers, struggle with a little bit. Because they're very, very used to advertising dollars buy me attention, and advertising dollars are what drives my business forward. Whereas there is ample evidence to suggest that actually the value of earned affection is significant. It is actually something that they should potentially be paying more attention to. Some brands are brilliant at this. Other brands, it's not something that's necessarily been in their heritage. And packaged goods companies are possibly some of the companies that struggle a little bit more in this area. As everybody knows, right, on the back of almost every plastic bottle, every packaged good that you buy, you can nearly always find a customer care line, whether it's in an email form, or whether it's a phone number, or whether it's a Facebook account or a Twitter account. Has anyone ever phoned one of those customer care lines? Right, I have, because I did this as part of preparing for this. I have to tell you, it is the most profoundly depressing experience in the world, because you phone up there, and actually I tried different models. So I did a whole bunch of companies ranging across a whole bunch of different industries, and I went with a complaint to see what kind of sort of response I get, and I went with the actually I love this product but I can't find it anymore, help me find this product. And I went with the whole gushing, I love this product and I want to know more about it. In every single instance, the experience was truly dreadful. It was all about reading from pre-prepared scripts, and it was all about how do I get this pain in the ass woman off the phone as fast as possible. And that's an extraordinary missed opportunity. And it's not just in the customer care lines. The vast majority of brands don't really look at Twitter as actually being a conversational platform. They see it as just an extension of, here's just another platform that I can just push more messaging out. Facebook pages are the same. I mean, so many of these customer contact points that actually can be the bedrock of dialogue and affection and conversation are just treated as a place where I can put a consumer into a little box, package them up, and just get them out the door as fast as possible, which is an enormous missed opportunity. And we're starting to see some of the more savvy advertisers actually start to recognise that and start to put more attention behind what these different contact points can actually do. Because we all have to recognise that in a world beyond advertising, data is incredibly important, and these kinds of places are a source of harvesting data, and in particular a source of continuing a dialogue with consumers so that data remains fresh. So a really good rule of thumb about whether or not a contact point in a CRM database is a live contact point or not is the last time you reached out to them, did they respond to you? If they didn't respond to you, try it again, and if they still don't respond to you, it's a dead contact. It's a pretty good rule of thumb. But so many advertisers that we talk to actually don't really look at their CRM database in that way, don't think about, actually, how do I continue, now this person has reached out to me, how do I continue to build a dialogue with them that means that I have a continuously fresh contact point? And they certainly don't think about what's the role of affection within that dialogue. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of different advertisers who actually do affection in a very, very human way. So Sainsbury's, big grocery multiple retailer in the UK, not known for being the most human human brand in the world. But in this particular instance, they actually got it completely right. And this was a huge story in the UK. So there is a bread that is sold, which there's a picture of that bread right over there. It's sold absolutely every bakery in the UK, and for whatever reason, it's called tiger bread. So it has like a speckledy surface, and it's always been called tiger bread. Since I was a little child, it's been called tiger bread. The thing is, it doesn't really look like tiger stripes at all. And it took a small child, a 3.5-year-old child, to write a letter into Sainsbury's to say, that's a really stupid name for this bread, because, you know, tigers have got stripes. That looks more like a giraffe. Now, I tell you, an awful lot of advertisers have just gone, yeah, what the fuck? Screwed out the letter in the bin. But actually, Sainsbury's, in general, have a policy of trying to respond to all of their customers in a very, very human way. And in this particular instance, went above and beyond. And not only did they write back to this child to say, actually, do you know what? You're absolutely right. It's a really stupid name for this bread. You're a very clever little girl to notice that it's more like a giraffe. But they then picked that up and actually turned that into a really, really human story. So what actually happened was that there was a campaign launched behind it to actually generate some, or to test what's the public interest and the public belief in thinking that actually the name of tiger bread should be changed to the name of giraffe bread. And they did this whole huge both social campaign, PR campaign, and a small amount of advertising campaign behind it. And the result is that several years later in Sainsbury's, tiger bread is now called giraffe bread. So, you know, it's a really nice way of using those outreaches that consumers bring to you to actually build human stories around your brand. This is another brand that does it very well. And actually, hospitality industry generally tends to be a little bit better in using consumer stories. So this is RitzCarlton in, I can't remember where this was. I think it was Alabama. It was somewhere in the US anyway. And this couple visited it with their little child. And their little child sleeps with, it's actually a pajama case. It's a really old, manky pajama case. But if anyone in the room has children, you know, small children, you know how they get really attached to their teddy or their blankie or whatever it is, and they can't sleep without it. Well, this child took their pajama case with them on holiday, and they left their pajama case in the hotel room, which, again, if you have small children, you know how disastrous this can be, because your child gets home, realise they've lost their favourite teddy, and cue 5 nights of, you know, not being able to sleep until you can find a replacement teddy because the child's screaming, crying all night. Well, the dad of this family actually decided to write to RitzCarlton and say, I've told my daughter that actually Teddy's gone on holiday, so he's doing an extended holiday. Please could you find Teddy? Please could you courier him back to us? We will pay for it all. Well, RitzCarlton did a really sweet little thing, which is not only did they find the Teddy, but when they couriered it back, which they didn't charge him for, they paid for it, they'd done a whole photo of albums of Teddy doing various things on his extended holiday. And again, they use this in lots of their consumer outreach programs to tell a little bit of story about what it is to be human in a brand. The other thing that we talk a lot about, because we talked in this bit about experiences and about the value of participation versus the value of amplification. And very often when we come to talk about events, events being a bedrock of a post-advertising world, we tend to think about it in terms of the numbers that attend the event and what they can do with that. Well, certainly some advertisers do this. But actually, really, in this day and age, it's not about the people who come to the event, it's actually about the social reach of the people who come to the event, right? So we've moved on with many of our clients from thinking about the people that we want to come to the event, I just need them to be in the target audience of my product, to being, actually, I need them to be in the target audience of my product, but I need them to be great social outreachers. So we look at what's the social velocity of different types of consumers and get them to come to our event. Because actually the value of their attendance is not in their attendance, it's in their ability to reach people through their tweets and their photos and their posts of the event itself. And a great example of an event that is all about amplification. Do you have Colour Run in Copenhagen? Yeah. So Colour Run is all about amplification, right? It's raison d'etre. It's completely designed for an event that's about social media sharing, and an event that is about reaching millions more people than will ever physically come to the event itself. We talk about the world of data. So you heard that our brand manager, our poor beleaguered brand manager, talking about a world of data and about how to use data and relevance, data to drive targeting, data to drive relevance, which people are pretty much used to doing. But the big change over the last few years actually has been about how we use data to drive customization at scale. So a significant number of the conversations that we have really with all of our clients, from the very large packaged goods clients down to the ones working in the hospitality industry, to the ones working in the apparel industry, is how do I use my data to understand the myriad different customer journeys and consumer journeys that each of my different types of customer groups actually have, and how do I use that to actually build out customization at scale. So it's taking the concept of sort of right message, right time, right place to the nth degree, so that every different consumer actually ends up with a very, very different experience of what your brand is. And that is absolutely critical in the world of after ad, because if you get your data right, and if you get your data properties right and your data product right, you're able to find new audiences, you're able to deliver better targeting of those audiences, you're able to deliver customized experiences, and if we go back to our very first point, you're able to drive algorithmic discovery of your content much, much better. So we need to think a little bit harder, and actually even now, these are the conversations that we're having. So we've got a world at the moment where our clients are very, very comfortable in operating in the advertising and the promotion space, and are getting increasingly comfortable in the content and experience space. And they're tending to use those for two different reasons at the moment. So A&P is really focused on product innovation stories, on offer stories, whereas they're tending to use content and experience to build more of a narrative around the brand heritage and the brand story itself. But the bit that we're trying to get many of our clients to really focus quite heavily on at the moment is service and utility. So in order to survive in a world where consumers are able to filter you out, for whatever reason that might be, being useful and being valuable possibly trumps anything else that you have out there. And what service and utility means can actually vary enormously. So it can vary from actually there is a utility in just being entertaining and being a great source of entertainment. But for a huge number of brands, actually utility has to move beyond that. And I'm just going to show you a couple of case studies that have just got examples of how some brands are operating in the space of utility incredibly well already. So the first one is an example from Colgate in Myanmar. So very unusual country to have great case studies coming from, but this really, really is a cracking example of how a brand understands the realities of what life is like in a particular market and brings that utility story to life in a very, very compelling way.
To most, it's just a box. But to thousands of school children in Myanmar, it's an education. When Colgate-Palmolive began operations in Myanmar, they found not just a developing market, but a school system lacking in even basic resources and educational aids. Colgate-Palmolive realized they had two existing assets that could help: thousands of units of packaging and a growing distribution network that reached deep into Myanmar. Working with local teachers, Colgate-Palmolive developed not just educational posters to print on the inside of boxes, but entire lesson plans to go with them. Each different poster has a unique toll-free number, letting teachers access a 10-minute lesson tailored to the Myanmar school syllabus from any phone. Today, education in a box is giving new life to Colgate packaging and new hope to thousands of Myanmar school children.
Our second case study in this area was actually from Nivea, and I'm going to apologise in advance. This is quite an old case study, so the resolution of the video is not brilliant. But actually, I hope it'll still do the job very, very well, because what Nivea has managed to do, so this is for Nivea Sun Protection, they have done a really, really strong job of actually defining what the brand is about in the utility space, and linked that inherently to the product attribute, which is the job of Nivea Sun Protection is to keep your, in this instance, your child's skin safe on the beach. And they've extended that safety on the beach and safety on the holiday proposition out into a much bigger service and utility world. That's a campaign that actually started in Brazil, but is moved into being a global campaign. So now they're actually giving away the bracelet. So at the time it was given in a magazine, which is a terrifically expensive way to do it because of the distribution of it. So it's now given away as a little collar on the sun protection bottles in many markets. And then the final case study that we use really to demonstrate to our clients about what utility is about is actually a piece of work from one of Mindshare's clients in Turkey, which is Vodafone. And Vodafone, telco operator, again operate in the safety space when it comes to service and utility. And they have a number of different products that are all about using your cell phone as a source of safety and keeping you safe all the time. And this is a particularly compelling example of how they do exactly that.
In a society where family is above everything else, it's inappropriate for women to openly seek help. Vodafone believes technology can be a powerful force for good, so we created an app in which women could secretly seek help. Hidden in a flashlight app, but if the user is in danger, she can just shake her phone and the app automatically sends a message to 3 people she trusts, along with her exact location. To spread an app which works only if it's kept secret, we hid our messages in places no man would ever see it, like lingerie tags at partner shops, wax strips, female toilets, even promoted female video bloggers on national TV to boost views online on their tutorial videos, which contained our message hidden deep inside the content. We estimated the secrecy would last 10 months, then the app would slowly be exposed and become useless. That's when we moved to phase 2, launching an update which turned the innocent flashlight into a mirror application. Once again, using hidden messages to announce the change. If any men would try to watch these videos, we attempted to lure them with banners that would direct them elsewhere. Hidden inside a shareable cosmetics discount, the message appeared only when it was copy-pasted. All of Vodafone female subscribers were informed through an automated voice system about the function of the app. They were also given the option to share the voice message with their friends and help promote it. The system recognized if a man answered the phone, so instead, he would hear a generic promotional offer from Vodafone. As of today, over 254,000 women have downloaded the app. That's 24% of all women with smartphones in Turkey. The app has been activated over 103,000 times. We hope that one day the biggest success will be when we don't have to make any more versions of the app, and no woman will ever have to download it again.
Whenever we show clients some of these, their immediate reaction is say, we need to build an app. So I always give them this chart as well, which is the reality of the app world, which is the average consumer has 40 apps on their phone, but they only use 8 of them regularly. So don't talk about building a new app. Try and integrate into that 8 so that you don't become one of the 22% of apps that gets downloaded and used once and never gets used again, is deleted almost immediately. I'm going to move on, I think, to the last section. Has anyone heard Paul Polman, who's the chairman of Unilever, talk about purpose within the company? He's actually published some really brilliant stuff online. I'd actually urge anyone who's interested in this area to go and read actually the Unilever annual report, because he talks really, really compellingly about why purpose is important and why, for him, Unilever needs to be a company with purpose at its heart and is a company with purpose at its heart, as opposed to a company where purpose is something that you do on the side. And the reality is that brands with clearly defined purpose and clearly defined utility are growing at double the rate of brands that aren't. And the reality is that, especially for millennial target audiences, purpose is important. As a brand going forward, it is critical that everybody understands that, this quote, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So being able to be a brand where a millennial can clearly identify that you are doing good and that you are doing no harm is critically important. So we are spending a lot of time working with our different clients across the globe on helping them define what is the purpose that sits at the heart of their brand and at their organisation. And for some companies, this comes quite easily. For some companies, this doesn't come quite so easily. But it is this is mission critical, really, for any organisation right now to get this right. But the final thing that we really talk about in this section is actually about the role of communities and the role of advocacy and how to build out communities that convince from your existing consumers. So some clients operate really, really successfully in this space. Some clients actually just haven't really started thinking about how to energize their current consumers and how to make them advocates for the brand. And I'm going to end today just actually by showing you an absolutely cracking case study of a brand that does this brilliantly in this case study. And it's from not so very far away from here, for Toyota Hybrid.
In Norway, Toyota is behind when it comes to recruiting new customers, but they are leaders in both sales, loyalty and customer satisfaction. So how could we use this to improve recruitment? God knows, many are trying. Toyota presents Try My Hybrid. Toyota Hybrid owners are the most satisfied car owners in Norway. Forget about car salesmen for a moment. What if people could experience hybrids with someone they know and trust? Through Toyota's Facebook page, we recruited hybrid owners all over Norway. So proud of their cars that they, without pay, volunteered to let strangers, friends and neighbours test drive their cars. Selected owners were the faces and voices of the campaign locally and nationally. On the campaign site, you could find hybrid owners close to where you lived. And logging in with Facebook allowed you to find friends and friends of friends whose hybrid you could test drive. In a small country like Norway, this basically meant that every Norwegian on Facebook indirectly knew a hybrid owner they could test drive with. This completely new approach generated a lot of publicity. And during the campaign, one of Norway's biggest radio shows broadcasted the show live from a Prius. Try My Hybrid is about activating all of our ambassadors, so that conversations about Toyota Hybrid and the environment are initiated not by Toyota, but by the hybrid owners themselves.